If you don't know by now, your Intel 13 and 14 generation CPUs are slowly dying and you really cannot do anything about it, at least from yourself. So let me paint you the full picture. A lot of users using Intel's 13 and 14 generation CPUs are recently facing some random crashes, especially when loading up games. The reason these CPUs are so unstable because they are eating more than they can handle. Let me explain. Intel CPUs are mostly locked except some K-series CPUs. That means that if you have a K-series CPU, you can overclock or increase the clock speed from what is written on the box. But Intel and AMD both don't do it out of the box, and neither they suggest motherboard manufacturers to enable it by default. It is on us users to do it by choice. And nowadays, when you cannot differentiate from one motherboard to another, motherboard manufacturers are applying some sneaky tricks. They are tuning the load line, which makes your CPU stable when it is on heavy load. Also, they are increasing the max sustained temperature, after which point your CPU starts to throttle to 100 degrees Celsius. This ultimately results in your CPU running on a higher temperature than what is normally capable of with very unstable load lines. Some motherboard manufacturers like ASUS were increasing the core voltage of these CPUs to make them stable, which results in faster CPU degradation, and then these degraded CPUs would need much more voltage, making the situation worse. Adding salt to the injury, these 13 and 14 generation CPUs already have a bug in their microcode where these CPUs were sending incorrect voltage requests. To make it simple, let's assume your CPU contains a lot of bucket of waters. Now, do not associate these buckets with your CPU cores. I'm just trying to make this thing simple and non-technical. And these buckets of water are connected with a pipeline where the water is coming in, but in this situation it is coming in too fast and too much, which results these buckets to get break. And you cannot fix one of these buckets if one break, and the pipeline is already predetermined with how much water is coming in and what is the water pressure. Slowly one bucket breaks after another, and now your CPU is technically dead. Now, CPU degradation is a very normal thing. Every CPU degrades with time, but not this fast. And Intel was aware of this situation from late 2023 and was working with motherboard manufacturers privately to fix this issue. But the fix was lowering the power of the CPUs from 235 watts to 125 watts. And when you are cutting down the power by half, technically you are not going to face this problem, but at the same time the CPU you bought for its performance is not going to perform the same. These BIOS updates still weren't enough because the Intel default power plan or the baseline power plan wasn't taking the wrong voltage request in mind. And if you bought your 13th generation Intel CPU at early 2023, a BIOS update might not even fix your CPU's problem because they have a manufacturing problem of oxidation discovered first by Gamer Next. And to fix this issue, you have to send your CPU to Intel for RMA. But as far as I can remember, Intel still hasn't issued any recall against these CPUs or publicly said which batch of CPUs are affected with this manufacturing defect. This situation is so bad that a game development company completely switching their arsenal from Intel to AMD. So now what should you do? If you have a Intel 13 or 14 generation CPU, you should update your BIOS. Go to your motherboard manufacturer's page and check if there is a new BIOS update. If there is a new BIOS revision, update it immediately. Secondly, if you want to be on the safer side, then you can lower your clock speed by 300 to 500 megahertz. But even after all that, you are still facing random crashes, well, you can contact Intel for replacement or support. Now, Intel has promised that they would issue an update addressing the root cause of this problem by mid-August. But the root cause is still not clear, and Intel really found themselves in a very bad situation. And making the matter worse, the way that they are trying to deal with this situation, they have lost their reputation and credibility by a lot. And if they want to be the silicon manufacturer of the West, then they have to put in way much more work than they have been doing so far. They have to take accountability. They have to know that these kind of situation doesn't fix itself, and if they are aware of the situation, then they should have come out publicly and issued recall, refund, or anything that would help their first stakeholder, which is their customer. So let me know in the comment section, do you have an Intel 13 or 14 generation CPU? And if you do, have you faced any problems or not? Or do you still trust Intel after all this? And while you're down there, don't forget to like the video if you liked it. If you hated it, leave it a dislike. Feel free to do it and comment down below why did you dislike it. Until then, you can watch this video right here and you can subscribe right here. And there's Akash, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.